The GTA's self-style crypto king has been arrested. The 25-year-old Whitby native Aiden Pleterski is accused of defrauding investors out of more than $40 million. One of the reporters on this story throughout, our Angelina King, and she joins us now from outside the police station in Whitby to break down what we're hearing from officers about their investigation into the so-called crypto king. And we could hear you asking some questions at that presser. Angelina, thanks for running outside for us. What stood out from you with what you heard from investigators today?
Well, kind of two things, Dwight. I think the first is just the scope of this investigation. From every person in law enforcement we heard from, including the Ontario Securities Commission, they all just said, how much went into this investigation. The chief of police here in Durham Region said that it's believed to be the largest fraud investigation in the region. It spanned multiple jurisdictions. They mentioned several police services here in Ontario, the OPP, FinTrack, even the Department of Homeland Security in the United States. The other thing that stood out is, unfortunately, they weren't able to tell us much because there is a publication ban right now because Aiden Pleterski was released on bail. There's always kind of a blanket publication ban when it comes to information that would have come out in a bail hearing. So we asked questions like how many investors are involved, how much money total are we talking about that was lost. Police weren't able to answer those questions, but through the bankruptcy proceeding, we have a bit of an understanding around 160 investors involved in the bankruptcy proceeding, and more than $40 million has been unaccounted for when it comes to the bankruptcy proceeding. I do want to play a clip from the Ontario Securities Commission, just kind of talking about all that's gone into this investigation. We're talking about financial documents that are obviously difficult to decipher. They said multiple victims, multiple interviews were done. So I just want to play a little clip there to kind of give us a sense of the scope of this investigation.
The size of the alleged fraud was massive and spanned across multiple jurisdictions. The investigative team included forensic accountants from the OSC. This specialized skill set was vital in the investigation because it enabled us to analyze huge volumes of financial information, quantify the alleged fraud, and follow the money.
Angelina, we gave some of the background off the top before we got to you, but one thing we didn't touch on was Pleterski's associate, Colin Murphy. He has also been charged with fraud. What do we know about his involvement in all of this?
Sure. So, yes, he's been charged with one count of fraud over $5,000. He was arrested, we learned today, on May 10th. He surrendered himself. So back in February, I actually covered his contempt of court sentencing. Now, he was found guilty of contempt of court in a case relating to a lawsuit that's also kind of related to all of this. So an investor filed a civil lawsuit against Colin Murphy because he's trying to recover $120,000 he says he gave to Murphy to invest with Aiden Pleterski. During that lawsuit, there was kind of a civil search warrant that was launched. During that time, Murphy refused to hand over his iPhone, and then he deleted data off of that iPhone. And a fraud lawyer that we've talked to believes that there's really important information on that iPhone. So he was found guilty of contempt of court. He was sentenced to 5 months in February, but he appealed that sentence, so he was released in March pending that appeal. So now he has been arrested as part of Project Swan and has been released, as well as Aiden Pleterski has been released on bail.
And if any folks want some background on this, they need to go online and follow your coverage because you've been on this since the beginning along with Nicole Brockbank. There have been several key developments then over the last 2 years you've been covering this, Angelina, including kidnapping.
Yes, exactly. My colleague Nicole Brockbank, she broke the story nearly 2 years ago now. There's been so many twists and turns. I think the big one is that alleged kidnapping. So last summer, a man who invested with Pleterski and 4 other men were actually charged with kidnapping him and then we here at CBC's Enterprise Unit, we received a video of a visibly beaten and bruised Aiden Pleterski. He was seemingly kind of explaining himself and apologizing in that kidnapping video, and then his lawyer at the time said that some of what he said wasn't true because it was said under duress. There's been a few other twists and turns I'll tell you about. So after the alleged kidnapping incident, there was a lawsuit filed in relation to the mansion that Pleterski was renting. A Canadian NBA star purchased this mansion. It's in Burlington. And after he moved in a lawsuit, he says that he and his girlfriend were experiencing, there was threatening visits to the home, people looking for Aiden Pleterski that was making them feel unsafe. So there was that lawsuit. And then we've also been covering kind of some of the things that Pleterski has been up to. So during this bankruptcy proceeding, he's been kind of jet setting around the world. He's been to the UK, he's been to Australia, he's been to Miami. At the time, he says that he's been making money off of streaming online. One thing I will mention too that we heard from police is that they believe that Aiden Pleterski has been trying to get new investors as early as 3 months ago in February. So he's been active on social media. He's actually even posted since he's been released on bail on Tuesday. I actually just checked his TikTok before I came to talk to you, and it looks like his profile's been deleted, but he was posting just a couple of days ago. He is not allowed, though, to be posting on social media about anything financial or investing related. That was one of his bail conditions.
It was very surprising, Angelina, to hear that from investigators just a few months ago, that he was still soliciting investors with all of this playing out, and we know what's happening behind the scenes with him. So Pleterski got out on bail thanks to his parents and the $100,000 bond. What do we know about what he's up to right now? Is he off social media? You just mentioned his TikTok was down. Have you heard anything from him since police have announced these charges?
We have not. A CBC reporter actually went and knocked on a door that, according to documents, the home has a connection to his parents. Nobody answered, so we did try and see if Pleterski or perhaps his family had anything that they wanted to say. I imagine later today we'll reach out to his lawyer that's been working on his behalf during the bankruptcy proceedings. Not entirely sure at this point if that's the same lawyer that'll be representing him when it comes to these charges. One interesting thing, so the court documents and his bail appearance happened in Oshawa, but the case is actually being moved to Toronto. He's next scheduled to appear in court on June 10th. I asked investigators, why is it being moved to Toronto? They wouldn't say. They said that's under the publication ban. So ideally, we get a little bit more information at his next court appearance. But I mean, the investigation into this has taken, nearly 2 years. I mentioned, and court. We know the court process can be quite lengthy. So I imagine that, there'll still be more to come, but they still have.
And you will
we didn't get to, that I do want to mention, if we have the time, because police weren't able to give us much about the scope in terms of money lost and investors, but I just want to give you a little bit of what we do know from the bankruptcy proceeding is that they found that, investors, about 160 of them, lost more than $40 million. The bankruptcy proceeding found that Pleterski only invested about 2% of the money, spending $16 million on himself, things like private jets, buying luxury cars, renting that lakefront mansion in Burlington I mentioned. And so far, the bankruptcy proceeding has only been able to recover about $3 million, and that's to be split across around 160 investors, and police believe that there are still other investors, victims out there who haven't come forward, so they are asking people to contact them if they have had any relation to Aiden Pleterski or Colin Murphy.
I mean, just imagine how infuriating it was for viewers and listeners watching your coverage as he's allegedly living this jet-set lifestyle, and they're saying that it was fraud and he's doing it on their money. Incredible work by you and the investigative team and Nicole on this. Thank you, Angelina.